6 teams who were ranked in front of Clemson in the college football rankings, the playoff rankings, they lost yesterday. Count them up. We'll go over that in just a second. So, what does that mean for Clemson and their probability of getting into the college football playoff and possibly not even making the ACC championship game? I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but welcome to the channel. I'm Brian. I'm glad you're here. Yesterday was crazy, and it's that time of year where teams who could hide behind the hype, maybe hide behind one marquee win or so on, they fell apart yesterday, Alabama. But we're gonna talk about that and more in just a second. I hope you'll subscribe if you like talking college football, Clemson football, or whatever. I'm talking about it here. Hope you'll subscribe. Remember, it is free. So yes, 6 teams ranked in front of Clemson lost yesterday. So I pulled it up right here. So let's do a count, a visual count. Indiana finally played a team with a pulse. They lost by 23 points. They were ranked number 5. We have Alabama getting shellacked, by the way, by Oklahoma. They lost 24-3. That's team number 2. Ole Miss lost to Florida. That's loss number 3. Let's go to BYU, who was ranked number 14. They lost yesterday. That's loss number 4. Texas A&M lost to a bad Auburn team by 2 points. That's loss number 5. And yes, the Colorado Buffalo, they were ranked in front of Clemson at number 16. Clemson's number 17 in the current poll. The new poll comes out Tuesday night. So that is 6 football teams in front of the Clemson Tigers who lost yesterday. Now, if you watch my channel, you know that I'm not a big fan of the way your team or my team gets in is by everybody having to fall apart. Like, I'll take it, but if you really want to see longevity within your program, guess what? You're not going to get lucky that often. It's better to be talented than lucky. Yes, luck will get you there. But there is a chance that the Clemson Tigers can get into the college football playoff without going to the ACC championship game. Pause there. There's a chance that Clemson could still make the ACC conference championship game. How would that happen? Well, first, SMU could lose this weekend, and they're already in. Okay, they're already in. Clemson, they're done with their conference play. Obviously, they're playing South Carolina this week in the big rivalry game. I'll talk more about that this week. But Miami, if they lose to Syracuse this week, Clemson is in. Now, the likelihood of that, we can talk about on it at another time. I see it being a possibility, but likely is kind of different. Clemson, they got themselves into this position by losing to Louisville at night at home. Okay, I'm not going to continue talking about that, but that's where we're at. But when you step back and you look at yesterday, and I'm going to make this more tangible, and by the end of it, you may start this video going, Brian, you're really reaching. You're going for clickbait or something like that. I've had some people say, you went for clickbait. Hey, pal, I hate to tell you, that's how it gets a lot of people's attention. And when I try to do the nice and positive videos, half of you who complain about clickbait, you don't even watch. So don't preach to me you're being a hypocrite. With that said, this is not clickbait. I don't believe that there's just this amazing chance that Clemson gets into the college football playoff, but well, let's break this down. It is possible. If I'd have told you yesterday that Alabama would lose by 3 touchdowns to an underwhelming Oklahoma team, you would have laughed me off of my own channel. But they did. Everybody thought that Indiana would lose to Ohio State, and they did. But Alabama by 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma? Now, if you looked at the line for the Texas A&M Auburn game, Texas A&M was only a 1-point favorite, and I didn't check it literally right before kickoff, but I think it was yesterday morning. It was 1 point in favor of Texas A&M. So that's not a shock to everyone, even though Auburn's just not a good football team. It's kind of weird. I expected a little more from them in Freeze's second full year. Let's talk about who's the other team? Ole Miss. Ole Miss played a Florida team, and kudos to Billy Napier. I already thought that he had been fired by now a few weeks ago. But this guy has won these ball games. DJ Lagway, the true freshman quarterback, the guy we tried to get at Clemson. We went down to Florida and make that money. Don't you go and work at places for money too? So before you get all upset about it, if you're going to clock into to work tomorrow, you went there for money. I very well doubt you went there to win friends and influence people. But yeah, he went down to Florida. That kid came out yesterday, played his brains out, and beat Ole Miss. Knocked Ole Miss out of it. That's loss number 3 for them. That's 3 in-conference losses for them. I talked about Alabama just a second ago. And when you look at their conference losses, Alabama now has 3 SEC losses. Let's talk about Texas A&M. I just referenced them a second ago. They got their second SEC loss yesterday. They play Texas this weekend. Texas is the only one-loss in conference team in the SEC. It's crazy, ain't it? I mean, it really, really is. They are the only one-loss team in the SEC. Everybody else has 2 losses or more. Let's talk about Colorado. Colorado was starting to garner some attention. And they not only lost to Kansas, they lost by 16 points to Kansas. A Kansas team that is on a 2-game winning streak. They just beat BYU. They beat Colorado. The Big 12's a mess. That opens up space for Clemson. Talked about BYU. They're on a 2-game losing streak right now. They were 9-0. They were in the top 10. I did a video about the Cougars and what they were doing, and I just said to the Cougar fans, listen, I have no ill will towards you, but I tell the truth about my team, and I'm going to tell the truth about you. You've played no one that really makes us go, wow, they're for real. Well, they beat SMU, and SMU is going to be in the conference championship. How many of y'all are really buying SMU? I'm not. Good for them that they've won their games and blah, 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 but I just don't think that SMU is a top-tier team. And they didn't have to play Clemson. They haven't had to play Miami in the regular season. So, there we go. BYU loses 2 weeks in a row. They were number 14. They dropped that game. I talked about Indiana getting blown out. All of these games, had I told you yesterday, some of them like Indiana, you would have said, okay, I see that. If I'd have brought up that Arizona State could beat BYU, you'd have probably said, okay, look, they're a much improved team. Before yesterday's game, they were 8-2. They were 5-2 in the conference. They're definitely in the running for the Big 12, and last I checked. So that's not like some major upset, but BYU, you would think that they would be the favorite, although Vegas had Arizona State a favorite by a few points. I've said all of this to make my statement. There's still a lot of football to play this week. Now, do I want my Clemson team to have to get lucky to get in the college football playoff team? Now, some of you're totally fine with that, but you're missing the point that you have to get lucky to get into the college football playoff versus taking your top 5, according to 24/7 Sports, preseason composite rankings, where they rank the most talented teams according to how many 5 and 4 stars they have on their team. Clemson's ranked number 5. So some of you've bought into, Sweeney ain't using the portal, and they suck down there. That's a lie. You need to stop listening to the people who says that's a lie. If Clemson's guilty of anything, they're guilty of not having an elite coaching staff as a majority. That's been the undermining of Clemson. Their coaching staff, as a majority, does less with more talent. And there's always a good excuse for a reason of why Clemson is not playing at a higher level. And that higher level of talent that Clemson has been able to allow them to skate by and just win enough games to keep half of y'all happy, and so you can keep barfing up that excuse, well, you can't win them all. And I'm like, you're losing sight of the point here. But to get back on point, if Clemson beats South Carolina this weekend, and by the way, I went and I looked at that South Carolina game. And as of right now, believe it or not, for the game against South Carolina this Saturday, 12 o'clock in Death Valley on ESPN, Clemson is a 2.5-point favorite over the Gamecocks. Let me tell you what that means in Vegas talk. Anybody can win this game. If you switch the game to Columbia, probably be about the same. So this is a big game. Hey, listen to this. This is the highest ranked game in the rivalry, meaning that both teams were ranked. This is the highest ranked game since 2013, when Clemson, I believe, was number 6 and South Carolina was number 10. That was when South Carolina won for a 5th year in a row over the Tigers. We don't want to talk about that. And then, of course, Clemson went on their big run after that, won national championships and all that good stuff. But this is the highest ranked Clemson versus South Carolina game since 2013. Now, these 6 losses by these teams helps both Clemson and South Carolina. And in a couple of days, when the college football playoff rankings comes out on Tuesday night, you want to take a wild guess what that's going to do for this game? Both of these teams are going to be ranked higher, which means the ranking will be the winner of the game will probably be rewarded even more. If Clemson wins against South Carolina, they get win number 10 on the season. South Carolina would get win number 9. And it could work out for both teams. I'm not worried about the Gamecocks. I'm concerned with Clemson. That's who I pull for. But there is a crazy chance that Clemson would get win number 10, not go to the conference championship, and somehow sneak in the back door of the college football playoff. Pause there. How could this happen? Well, you just saw what happened this past weekend, didn't you? Were you paying attention? You had some toss-ups that were lost. That would be like Colorado. You had Texas A&M. That was a toss-up. According to Vegas, that was kind of a toss-up. Then you had teams. You had Penn State. They won, but by 1 point over Minnesota. So this is rivalry weekend. Who knows who gets upset this weekend? So there's a possibility more teams will lose this weekend. This flipping weekend. And that, if Clemson were to beat South Carolina, and I think this is going to be a tough game. In fact, I think that South Carolina has it way more together right now at this point in the season than Clemson does. Well, that's why they play the game. Well, you keep sucking down some natural lights or keystones or whatever it makes you feel good. But right now, I hate to tell you, Bubba, South Carolina has a lot more going for them than Clemson. I mean, Clemson just gave up 288 yards on the ground to the flipping Citadel. But if Clemson wins this ball game, if Clemson wins the ball game against South Carolina, who knows? I mean, right now I'm looking at some games this coming weekend. Of course, let me see right here. Okay, here's a great example. Georgia Tech plays at Georgia this weekend. Georgia is a 20-point favorite. Okay? At this point, Georgia's a 20-point favorite. I'm not calling upset special. All I'm saying is that Georgia Tech, could they pull the upset against Georgia? Never say never in this scenario. Tennessee's playing at Vanderbilt. They're ranked in front of the Tigers. Tennessee's a 10.5-point favorite over Vanderbilt at this point. It's crazy. You have Maryland playing Penn State. Maryland's not a good football team. I hate to tell you, Penn State, they may be 10-1 right now, but they are not what you think they are. You have Notre Dame and Southern Cal getting together. Southern Cal's 6-5. They're paying about, $8 to $10 million a year to Lincoln Riley. And Southern Cal is just not, they're not really getting that much out of Lincoln Riley. But Notre Dame's playing at the Coliseum this Saturday. Notre Dame is only a 7-point favorite. A 10-1 Notre Dame team is only a 7-point favorite at Southern Cal. There's a game that could be blown. I talked about Miami playing at Syracuse. Syracuse is an 11-point underdog. But they're 8-3. They're 4-3 in the conference. Syracuse wins this game. They're 9-3. It's possible. California plays SMU at SMU. Now, take the conference scenario out of it. SMU's in the ACC championship game. But if SMU were to drop this game to California, and SMU's a 13.5-point favorite, but California's played close with a bunch of teams. In fact, I'm going to prove it to you. Why you should pay attention to this game. California lost to Florida State 14-9. That's a 5-point loss. They lost to Miami by 1 point. They lost to Pittsburgh by 2 points. They lost to NC State by 1 point. They lost to Syracuse by 8 points. California is not, and I know you can look at that Florida State game and go, man, that was bad. Yeah, I agree with you. California is not just a rollover. I just named out how many games, if they'd have just had 2 more points, they'd have won. That's just, let's just say they hit a field goal. 1, 2, 3 games. They would have 3 more wins with just an extra field goal. So that very well could be an upset that could work in Clemson's favor. Why? Because SMU's ranked in front of Clemson. Indiana will play Purdue this weekend. I'm quite sure they'll take care of them. We have Texas and Texas A&M at Kyle Field and College Station. Texas is only a 5.5-point favorite, even after the loss yesterday. Who knows what happens? So, what is my point here? I am not lobbying that Clemson should be in the college football playoff because I think they deserve it, or because I'm a Clemson fan. I am saying legitimately, after yesterday, all Clemson has to do is win this coming Saturday against the South Carolina Gamecocks. And even just a couple of games, go Wompy. And I just named out that a lot of these games are actually winnable based on the Vegas line. Our Clemson Tigers could find themselves in the college football playoff without even playing in the conference championship game. Think about that. It's crazy. All right, tell me your thoughts. Tell me your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking here. Do you actually think it's possible? Do you smell what The Rock is cooking? Let me know. I hope you've subscribed. If you haven't, remember it's free. Also, if you want to join, I have a button right below this video screen. It says join. Now, if you're on an iPhone, you probably don't see it. It's either $3 or $5 per month. A bunch of you have started not only subscribing, but you've been joining, and that really does support the channel. I really do appreciate it. At least drop a line and let me know that you saw the video. Let me know your thoughts. Y'all take care of yourself, and as always, go Tigers.